This is CBC Vancouver News.
Maybe we should be looking at ensuring that they're all wearing ankle bracelets.
Does it necessarily mean that the system needs to be changed? I don't think so.
Strong reaction as the search for a dangerous sex offender continues tonight. He went missing in Vancouver just ahead of his next court appearance tomorrow. Plus,
and to plant those trees to signify and honor those children, but then to also plant them for children in the future.
we take you to Cowichan to witness a special tree planting in honor of residential school survivors. And
it's just really showing the younger generations that there are players like us that are able to play at this level.
A handful of South Asian BCHL hockey players celebrate Punjabi game night in Surrey. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. BC's Premier says he's deeply disturbed to learn a dangerous sex offender is on the loose. 58-year-old Randall Hopley never returned to his Vancouver halfway house yesterday. Tonight, the search continues across the country. He's wanted on a Canada-wide arrest warrant. As Janella Hamilton reports, his disappearance comes just 2 days before his next scheduled court appearance.
Randall Hopley left his Vancouver halfway house at 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. He hasn't been seen since.
Given the heinous crime that he has committed in the past and has the potential to commit in the future, we should be very alarmed about it.
Police warn Hopley has committed 3 sex offenses against children in the past, and in 2011 he made national headlines for the abduction of a 3-year-old boy in Sparwood. The boy was taken from his bedroom during the night. After a massive search, he was returned 4 days later, physically unharmed. Hopley served 6 years in prison and was released in 2018 under strict conditions. Court records show Hopley has been charged with 2 counts of breaching his conditions in January. The parole board alleges he was caught using a computer at a public library within a meter of a group of children.
These are the individuals, given the crimes they've committed, need to be thrown in jail and the key thrown away in order for them to protect not only themselves, but more importantly, that we protect society.
BC's Premier says he is deeply disturbed to learn that Hopley is on the loose, criticizing the parole board for not having stricter safeguards in place.
It's hard to underline the importance of ensuring the safety of our kids. And we really look to the Senate to approve the bail reform bill as quickly as possible. It is unacceptable that they are sitting on this bill.
Advocates for sexual abuse victims say news of a dangerous sex offender unsupervised in the community can be very triggering for survivors. It's reignited calls for all levels of government to ramp up safeguards to protect the public.
Maybe we should be looking at ensuring that they're all wearing ankle bracelets. I think that's some way of determining what their patterns of travel are, where they're spending their time.
But this criminal defense lawyer says it's still important to allow offenders the chance to rehabilitate.
Does it necessarily mean that the system needs to be changed? I don't think so. I think that we should try as Canadians to reintegrate individuals, even individuals who have done terrible things.
Hopley was set to appear in provincial court in Vancouver on Monday. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
To the war in the Middle East, and Palestinian reports are describing bombardment today from Israeli forces as unprecedented. The internet is out, and Israel's military says it now has Gaza City fully encircled. It ends a day in which Israel faced more criticism, and the U.S. Secretary of State heard another demand for a ceasefire. The CBC's Ellen Morrow is in Jerusalem with the latest.
Panic at Al-Quds Hospital in Gaza City. Dozens injured, says the Palestine Red Crescent Society, after Israeli airstrikes close by. The building already filled with patients and the displaced. At the Al-Maghazi refugee camp, the hope for any more survivors in this mountain of rubble is dwindling. An Israeli airstrike at the camp, the Hamas-run health ministry says, killed at least 51 people. This journalist lost 4 of his children. I don't know what to tell you, Mohammed Al-Alul says in shock. May God have mercy on them. The children who survived this war will be forever scarred. Layan Al-Baz lost both her legs in an Israeli strike. I don't want false legs, she says. I want my legs back. My future is over now. The Israeli military says its strikes are aimed at Hamas, again accusing the militant group of hiding behind civilians. Supplying this video, the military says it shows rocket launching positions next to a playground. But for civilians, this is unbearable. Another night of heavy aerial bombardment, and Gaza cut off, the third telecommunications blackout of the war. In the occupied West Bank, crowds protested a surprise visit by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. There to meet with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Abbas called for a complete ceasefire. The U.S. is pushing instead for a shorter humanitarian pause.
It could advance things that we're all trying to accomplish, including getting hostages back, including getting a lot more assistance into Gaza.
Not far from that meeting, we met these men from Gaza. They had been working in Israel but were forced to flee to Ramallah after the October 7th attacks. No longer wanted in Israel, unable to return home. Hassan El Sultan shows me pictures of his loved ones, 18, he says, killed in the bombings. My wish is to be with my family, he tells me. Even if I would die there, I want to be with my family. Despite weeks of war, Hamas is showing it can still fire rockets into Israel, most intercepted by the Iron Dome. Israel's prime minister says there won't be any ceasefire until the more than 200 hostages being held by Hamas are free.
That is Ellen Morrow reporting from Jerusalem. Meanwhile, the only route for civilians out of Gaza remains closed, according to Global Affairs Canada. The Rafah crossing into Egypt remains shut for the second straight day today. The CBC's Tom Perry is in Cairo and tells us Tuesday may now be the earliest some foreign nationals will be able to leave.
All packed up, but going nowhere. A Canadian mother and daughter arriving on the Gaza side of the Rafah crossing with their passports in hand. My daughter and I have Canadian citizenship, she says. We've been struggling for 5 days, going back and forth to the Rafah crossing. But the border was closed again today, leaving Canadians and others still stranded. It's a very sad decision to suspend evacuations because the situation is dangerous, says this Palestinian man who holds German citizenship. A dispute over security guarantees for injured Palestinians is reportedly part of the reason for this shutdown. This after Israel struck an ambulance Friday, which it says was being used by Hamas. The Palestinian Red Crescent says it was taking patients to Rafah. Canadians in Gaza and their families back home are caught in the middle.
It's a very frustrating time.
Sama Al-Sabah has been trying to get her 73-year-old father out of Gaza. She was told her dad could leave Monday if he could get from northern Gaza to Rafah. Then she says her father got a phone call.
They contacted my father yesterday and they told him there has been delays because of the borders being closed today, so you'll be pushed back to Tuesday.
Each day the border is closed, the backlog gets bigger. But aid groups say while countries try to get their people to safety, they can't forget Palestinians who have nowhere to run.
All civilians should be protected. All civilians should not be harmed.
But civilians have been paying a heavy price since this conflict began. As this conflict approaches the 1-month mark, Canadians in Gaza say they're just trying to get out of the way. Global Affairs now says Canadians could start leaving Gaza as early as Tuesday, though it warns that date is tentative and subject to change. Tom Perry, CBC News, Cairo.
A volcanic ash cloud all the way from Russia affected nearly 24 flights at YVR this weekend. This volcano in eastern Russia erupted on Wednesday. Last night, the ash cloud made its way over Vancouver International Airport. Roughly 20 incoming and outgoing flights were either delayed or canceled overnight because of it. The volcanic eruption sent ash spewing 13 kilometers into the air. No one was injured. YVR says by this morning, all flights were back on schedule. On Vancouver Island, dozens of cedar trees have been planted in honor of residential school survivors. As Claire Palmer tells us, Indigenous families were joined by the broader community for today's special event.
Rainy weather softened the ground for tree planting and set the tone for what marked an emotional day for many. Members of the community came alongside residential school survivors for a special ceremony.
Kind of really hit close to home because that's where all my family went to, that school, and so it was just really important to me, close to my heart.
I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy that my grandchildren are here to participate today, and my son is here, and he's learning about our history.
Today was the fourth planting of its kind. It's part of a larger project to plant 3,000 cedar trees as a way to continue education around residential schools. It was the dream of a late elder to see the cedar protected and the history remembered.
It was a dream of my Shayas, my late brother, to make a place where we can plant one day 3,000 and make it a covenant, a protected area.
And to plant those trees to signify and honor those children, but then to also plant them for children in the future so that they would know the stories and they'd be able to go and harvest from those trees as they're learning culture.
Here, cedar holds a special meaning. It was used in a variety of ways, from cleaning to tools to building canoes and regalia. It still holds a sacred space today.
Knowing that my grandchildren are seeing something that's positive as they grow and learn into their culture and their heritage.
More than 500 trees have been planted in the area as a part of the project. Their vision is to see it expand to other communities as well. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Cowichan.
Well, to Surrey now, where Diwali Fest celebrations descended on City Hall today. The backdrop for this year's Festival of Lights was an Indian wedding theme.
We've had a number of pre-wedding events. Today is our big wedding day, so we're going to have a little ceremony with the bride and groom. We're going to have a lot of music and dance performances by their friends and family. There's yummy treats outside and arts and crafts for kids, so lots for people to do.
Crowds who turned up were encouraged to wear sparkling clothes to fit the theme. City Hall and its plaza were transformed with vendors, craft tables, performances, and food trucks. More Diwali events are slated for this week. Well, Punjabi celebrations are not something you often see at a hockey game, but some South Asian athletes on a local BCHL team are trying to change that. The Surrey Eagles celebrated diversity with their second annual Punjabi game night. As Yasmin Gandam tells us, they hope it leads to more representation in their sport.
From the moment you walk in the South Surrey Arena to any break in play, Punjabi culture is being celebrated, something South Asian players on the team say is not common in the league.
Growing up, there was always, you see one or two of us around, and, it's pretty crazy that we have 5 on our team, and, it's something that you don't normally typically see in a junior hockey team, and, it's really important because, it just brings the community together, especially Surrey being a very predominantly South Asian community.
It's the second year in a row the Surrey Eagles are putting on Punjabi Night. It kicked off with a traditional dole beat before Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke dropped the puck.
This is Surrey. We are all about diversity, and it is absolutely our pride and joy. And this is what makes Surrey such a great city.
The game night is designed to welcome more diverse fans to Eagles games and to make a long-lasting impact on the sport of hockey.
We're hoping that this will open up new frontiers for young kids to have new role models that they can see locally and aspire to play Canada's game, hockey.
In the NHL, I know that there's been more diversity, and I think, starting in the BCHL is a great starting point, and I'm hopeful that, there's going to be more representation in the NHL as well.
Famous Punjabi singers and members of the community gathered to celebrate culture and cheer on the Eagles. The team hopes this is one of many opportunities to highlight all things Punjabi and spur on broader participation in a sport that can reach all corners of the community. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Surrey.
Well, still to come, a small brewery in Prince George has come out on top to win the Canadian Beer Cup. We'll take you there to meet the owners coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. A small brewery in Prince George has just won the Canada Beer Cup. Deadfall Brewing was founded by a pair of bat biologists. Their Basil Brown Ale beat out more than 1,200 entries from across the country. And the crowning achievement has the husband and wife team pretty busy these days. Take a listen.
Hi, how's it going? Good. Can they get a 4-pack today? Yeah, that's the word many here. Absolutely.
Gobsmacked, overwhelmed, bewildered.
Totally did not believe it, actually.
Yeah. Until they announced it. Until they actually announced it live and we saw it. We had a small viewing party here. And until we did that and heard them say the words and they couldn't take it back, I think we were still both like...
Yeah, it's still sinking.
Yeah. We've only been open just over a year. And we have a small, tiny little 30-person tap room. And it's usually filled with regulars, people who've been with us and watched us grow. And suddenly there's all these new faces and all these people coming in and everyone trying this brown ale that is our lowest seller. Across the country, it's been
Yeah, we fielded a few calls, requests to get it out to like Ontario and such. And that's not going to happen, but I mean, we barely make enough in one batch to supply Prince George.
So small, and it's a family we've created. I really do think that we've made this really nice little family that takes care of each other.
We love Prince George, and that's who we make the beer for.
I'm so happy. So happy for you guys.
Awesome.
Imagine you just opened the miracle.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
This is so nice.
Thank you.
Glad you enjoyed.
So both Brandon and I are bat biologists. Brandon has moved on to professional brewing.
I still dabble.
You still dabble. And so bats are important to both of us. And it was important on this particular beer. It's even called basil. Basil is base or root. And this is our first beer we brewed here. It's our oldest recipe. And we put the bat on. It's been like our heart here. Yeah, it's got a Townsend bigger bat on it, which just wonderful. So it's important to us in lots of ways. And I can't believe that this is the one I want.
Love it.
Yeah.
Extreme weather conditions across Canada have taken a toll on trees. Fires, drought, and flooding have all left a mark, harming many trees, even some that might look healthy from the outside. The CBC's Lawrence Watt went to Stanley Park for a closer look at the impact there.
It's easy to forget about the roots, where we can inspect the base of a trunk and look for decay or signs of mushrooms growing on the trees. We can see different growth patterns in the tree. So that's for the root section. For the upper canopy, there are abnormal growth patterns, damage, decay that can happen in the tree that to the untrained eye might look like a cool tree, but to an arborist, we could see it as an early sign of decay that's setting in. With an obvious dead tree that's 100% dead, it's super obvious that that's dead. To the untrained eye, you're like, well, my tree used to be alive, now it's dead. With zombie trees, loss of foliage is not an indication that these defects are present. So just today, we had 2 trees that failed on people's houses, and both of them had a full canopy of foliage. There was root rot or decay in the root, and the tree failed at the base. So those are perfect examples of trees that are zombie trees that to the untrained eye, they would look completely fine. It was green, it was fine, but those are the ones when they fail that would cause these problems. Different trees have different growth patterns that can cause failure. Hemlocks, Douglas fir. Douglas firs have very long, overextended limbs, and the structure is supported through the bottom part of the limb. And as a result, when they get loaded with wind and snow, there's a higher likelihood that those branches are going to fall. So this maple tree, there's decay that's starting to set into this portion right here. So given that the decay is at the base of the tree, this is an indication that if there was a failure, there's a high likelihood it would be at this point. They're forced to use their stored energy to combat the drought, and they're unable to produce excessive stored energy to fight back against pests, against storms, against other things. So we'll see one of 2 things happen: either catastrophic failure, or we'll see a abrupt death. At the end of the day, if you have a tree on your property, it's your responsibility to manage that, and having a professional come in and take a look at it is one of the best things you can do.
Here's a live shot of the Georgia Viaduct with BC Place in the foreground, Science World in the background. A fairly typical fall forecast is on the way. We'll see when that rain is scheduled to make its next appearance with your 5-day forecast coming up next.
we're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Wherever you are in BC, local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. For news you can trust, download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
It's time for the full forecast, starting with our overnight temperatures, and quite seasonal right across the province. You'll see quite a bit of precipitation coming down depending where you are. It might fall as freezing rain, perhaps snow in those higher elevations, but fairly seasonal, and we'll see that moisture continue as this low pressure system kind of takes its time moving through. Here's how we saw it today. We had some nice breaks of sun this morning, especially along the south coast, but here you can see that next band of rain pulsing across the south coast. It'll hit Vancouver Island tonight and then come through Metro Vancouver, and we'll see that rain continue. Particularly tomorrow will be blustery through the island and the lower mainland, and even as it moves through parts of the interior as well. Those winds will pick up. The rain period's heavy at times, so do watch out on the roads. We could see some pooling water as well. Here's the forecast for tomorrow. Not quite as daunting as it looks. Mostly in, especially inland, we'll see that rain come down just as passing, isolated showers off and on. Again, breaks of cloud, perhaps some sun as well. So not a total washout for most of the province. Here's the 5-day forecast for Metro Vancouver. Again, today we'll see the worst of it. Make that Monday up to 10 millimeters Monday alone of rain, and then we'll start to dry out come Tuesday and possibly see some more sun as well. And that is your late news for Sunday, November 5th. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download the free CBC News app. And you can always find us online. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Thank you so much for watching this weekend. Good night.